Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing very well. This is the 20th of February here in Japan, at the time I'm speaking, and we are releasing a podcast today of a conversation that was held about 2 months ago with Luke Short, who is one of the writers at Android Police and who's been following very closely the events around ChromeOS and the future possible integration of Steam within ChromeOS. We, so of course, covered that topic about 2 months back, but also we discussed, the upcoming launch of the Steam Deck, which is just in a few days from now, actually, and what's going to happen this year following that release in 2022. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. There's still a lot of things that are speculation at this stage that we're still uncertain at the time. And there's a few things that have changed since then, but not much. So I think most of that conversation is still very much relevant. So I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll be back again very soon with any podcasts. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today again.
Hey, Ike. Thanks for having me on.
And so just to give you give our audience a quick background, so we had an interview with you back in May this year, 2021, where we discussed with you at the time the upcoming release of Steam for Chrome OS. And at that time, it was such predictions were made, I would say, before the Steam Deck information was released by Valve. So we were all, in the dark regarding this kind of hardware project. And at the time, you were expecting the Steam project on Chrome OS to come pretty soon. Maybe you were saying later this year, like Q3, maybe Q2, something like that. And now we are almost in December, end of December, and still hasn't surfaced yet, even though we have gained some additional signs here and there of something is clearly moving. So can you give us your current impression as to where things are going and why things may have been delayed a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give a little bit more context and backstory to this, there's actually an open tracker on ChromeOS bugs and feature requests.
Yeah.
And there was a feature request to add Vulkan support to the Linux container that normally just like developers or tinkerers like us might use in Chrome OS. Gives you a Debian container you can work with. And there was a feature request to add Vulkan support to that. And they said that they were targeting the year 2020 for that feature.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that date slipped. We're now in 2021 right now.
Uh-huh.
And it's not something you can easily enable today. I actually went through over the weekend. I just got a new work laptop for Android Police. I'm writing with them right now, and I was walking through the steps of enabling Vulkan, and you can do it now, and you can test it. And I finally have a great Chromebook to start playing these games and see the full potential of it with what is basically one of the best Chromebooks on the market, especially in terms of gaming. So I'm really excited to explore what happens with that. But even still, testing with it over the weekend, it's just not fully mature yet. There's definitely a performance hit of running this. It's actually not just running through a container. It's actually, there's a virtual machine, and then in the virtual machine, there's a container. So there's a few performance hits along the way. And then I think I think a few other things might be happening behind the scenes, with Valve talking about they got their Steam Deck on the horizon and this fancy new SteamOS 3.0 that's coming out based off of Arch Linux, which I'm very excited about that. And I think there is going to be kind of this maybe dependency on the Steam Deck coming out first.
Yeah.
I think they want the spotlight to be on that.
Mm-hmm.
Along with, there's still a lot of work to be done on the Chromebook side of things. And yeah, they were originally testing with Ubuntu 18.04 and Chrome OS. Since then, since the initial start of this new Steam support feature, they've really locked it down. It's in the Google Castle under lock and key, so we can't see a lot of what's going into the virtual machine they're working on.
All right.
But I can only guess that they're rebasing on SteamOS as well. So I think there's a lot of polish that needs to go still into Proton, into SteamOS, as well as just this brand new technology of being able to like forward Vulkan calls from your bare metal Chromebook into your virtual machine. I think it's still a heavy work in progress.
So, are you saying that the Borealis image is now being rebuilt on a new foundation, which could be SteamOS?
That's my theory. There's nothing to back that up. I gotta say, every week I'm trying to figure out different ways to possibly enable or get this the virtual machine used for Steam. It's called Borealis, in reference to what was supposed to be a very pivotal plot point for the Half-Life 2 Episode 3. If you've ever read the leak script, which I thought that's kind of a fun little tie-in there. But yeah, we don't have any information about it yet, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't running SteamOS 3 on there.
And so, what do you think is happening in terms of that release? Like, earlier you were thinking it would be released maybe by the end of this year. Now it looks like it's pushed back. Do you think they're going to wait for SteamOS to be fully released and the Steam Deck to be out before we see any action happening on the ChromeOS side?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm always very hopeful that it's just around the horizon, and we keep getting more hints and clues that it really should be releasing really soon. And kind of the a few pieces that of information I was mentioning in terms of like why it might still be releasing before the end of the year is like you said at the beginning, there's an original target date of Q2 to Q3 of this year, of 2021, to have a public beta. And the framework of that, it's now in ChromeOS. It's all fully there. All Google has to do is flip a switch to just enable it on their side to make it publicly accessible. And so they can do that at any moment. However, especially after it's literally, just this past weekend, just yesterday, I was playing around with it, and it's still very rough around the edges where there's that performance hit, and there's also some weird issues with mouse capturing with some games, such to the point that some games are just unplayable because you can't even move the mouse or interact with the menu.
So what you're saying is that currently you are already able to use that image and run it to actually run Steam within it?
So if we don't have access to that image,
Right.
The next best thing I'm able to do is, because it's using LXC containers in the
Right.
background, and what I'm doing is I'm setting up an Arch Linux container, and I'm installing Mesa Git from the Arch Linux user repository, and that gives me the latest libraries that should mirror at least
Right.
what's being used for the Vulkan pass-through, and it's basically as close as we can get to what we can kind of imagine would be the kind of final release, and it's close to the experience, but I'm sure it's not quite 100% there.
So with that, you're able to actually run games using Vulkan through the image, right?
Yeah, so earlier this year I was able to get Vulkan pass-through working. I figured it out.
Okay.
I spent so many months researching that. It was incredible that it actually worked. But then I had this old Chromebook. It didn't support the latest version of Vulkan. It supported like 1.1, 1.2 is the latest. And when you look at the requirements for DXVK and VKD3D for DirectX 11 and 12
Yeah.
support, you need Vulkan 1.12.
Mm.
So thankfully, I now have a Chromebook that has Intel Tiger Lake. It has the latest top of the line like G7 integrated graphics, and it supports Vulkan 1.2. So yeah, I was actually playing some Halo 3 over the weekend. I was doing some
Oh,
Capture
wow.
the Flag
Okay.
on my Chromebook, which was kind of fun and surreal.
How you mentioned there was some performance impact. How would you measure the kind of impact?
Yeah, so start off, what I have been doing for testing is I will run benchmarks. I use Mango HUD, which is amazing for doing Vulkan benchmarks. I've only recently started using the tool a few months ago. Can't believe I've never used it before. So I would run the benchmarks in my Arch Linux container, and then I would reboot my Chromebook. I can actually boot into other operating systems. So I boot into Arch Linux on bare metal, so no virtualization. Run the same game, same settings, and then just compare the numbers right there. I think that's a very good kind of baseline for that. But yeah, there's a lot of overhead there because in the Chrome OS land you have your Chromebook itself is running, the Chrome web browser, that's a memory hog. Your virtual machine, that's using memory. Your integrated graphics, that requires a lot of your memory too. So I'm using 8 gigs of RAM right now, and I'd say that's the bare minimum you need. You really should have at least like 16 gigs with a integrated GPU. So there's a new diagnostics app in Chrome that lets you it's like just a performance monitor, and I can see that literally all my RAM is consumed by trying to play like Halo 3 or any other game on my Chromebook.
So for Halo 3, how much difference in frame rates did you notice between running it, I would say, on Arch by rebooting versus through the Arch container that you had set up?
It's awful. It's awful on the Chromebook. So it's kind of hard to tell on the frame rate. I've just started doing the benchmarks last night, so I don't have any concrete numbers to share. But what I can say is that there's just major stuttering, and it's very slow, and you could probably only play for maybe like 5, maybe 10 minutes if you're really lucky before it just hard crashes. And the same goes for other games I've tested as well, Counter-Strike Go and Skyrim. There's just some more plumbing needs to be worked out for this for sure.
Have you tried some less demanding games like 2D games or stuff that would not require so much processing power?
Yeah, not yet. Over the summer, when I did get Vulkan working, the only reliable game I could run was actually Doom, using like a modded version of it that has a Vulkan renderer. So I think I'm going to go back and revisit that, because I have historic benchmarks on that, and I do want to compare to see how things have progressed from now. Because, geez, that was on I want to say ChromeOS 93. And now I'm testing on ChromeOS 99. There's a lot of major changes since then.
And so, do you think that it could be that the current Vulkan, I would say, pass through that image still not, I would say, ready for production yet, and therefore, like what you see currently in that version of ChromeOS is not going to be reflecting that final performance you will get later on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's more work to be done with it, and I do wonder if they're going with like SteamOS as what they're using. I don't think they're going to go with the traditional approach of a virtual machine and then a container in the virtual machine. I think they're just going with a straight up virtual machine. So you remove one layer of complexity by not having the container. Yeah. So hopefully that, along with whatever special sauce optimizations that Valve probably has in like their Linux kernel and other libraries, that I'm sure there'd be like, a difference in performance there.
That makes sense. And so, I think you mentioned in your Android Police article that you were expecting kind of a soft launch. Do you think that's still going to be the plan? As like they're going to kind of enable this and maybe without saying too much about it? Or do you still think that at some point they will actually make a lot of noise and go ahead with a big marketing campaign about the fact that ChromeOS now has Steam available?
Yeah, I think they're probably going to, start off little small, not really boasting about it, get all the beta testers in, because I'm sure that, at least based off my experiences of testing with it so far, it's just not been that great. So I'm hoping, once they get those kinks worked out and, hopefully open it up to, beta testing to folks who don't mind potentially running on maybe a more unstable version of Chrome OS, like a newer testing version that has that support baked in. Like they're gonna, make sure that it's gonna be a very polished experience. And as soon as it's production ready, I'm really hoping that marketing campaigns from Google and possibly even Valve, kick off.
Hand in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would make sense. And so, how about the hardware side? Like, since we talked in May, has there been some changes in terms of more powerful Chromebooks being available or planned to be launched in the future?
Yeah, so Intel Tiger Lake is kind of the sweet spot for gaming Chromebooks right now, and those were actually supposed to come out a while ago, but due to the chip shortage and supply and demand and everything, it's really only now that you're able to get these Chromebooks that were actually promised like 2 years ago. So, and even with that, there's kind of a minimum requirement for you to be able to have Steam. You can't just run it on any Chromebook. I actually found a list of every Chromebook that will be getting that support, and once we get closer to relaunch, I would definitely be publishing an article about like a buyer's guide for like a gaming Chromebook. But the pool is small. The pool is small, and they're not that powerful. So for me personally, I actually, every penny I make from like writing Chromebook articles, I'm just putting into a savings account that I'm not touching. And I'm just waiting for the day that a Chromebook comes out with a discrete graphics card, and at that point, I will definitely buy one.
I think you mentioned like on your Twitter feed that you were split between buying a Steam Deck next year and a new Chromebook. So what has changed for you after the Steam Deck was announced?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it was definitely like Steam Deck. Oh, I was on there like day one, like an hour before. It was like 11 o'clock my local time that it was like going on sale, and I'm like refreshing the page. I'm ready to go. I was just so excited. I bought the top model. I was like, I don't even necessarily care about all the specs included with it. I got a micro SD card, like a terabyte, to fill in my game library. But the big thing for me is I just want to support Valve. I want to directly support Valve. There's no middleman. You're not buying through Best Buy. You're buying directly from Valve.com or SteamPowered.com, I should say. And it's so exciting. This is kind of what I think is going to be the start of kind of this new generation of kind of Linux gamers. And I think it starts with the Steam Deck. It's expanded by Chromebooks. And heck, it was just last week we heard that like Amazon is now going to be contributing to Proton. It's like, holy shit. Just the way this is exploding right now is just, I would have never imagined.
So for Amazon, so just to make sure everybody is aware, because not everybody may have seen the news. So Luna, which is the streaming services from Amazon for cloud gaming, basically, which is similar to Stadia, until now was apparently using Windows, but then they're apparently now hiring people to basically run games using Linux and Proton. So when they would actually make the switch to from one platform to another is kind of unknown, but they clearly gearing towards that kind of move in terms of technology. So that's definitely very exciting to see. There's more now. I would say more companies now who's going to base their business using those kind of technologies available out there. They were created by Valve originally. And therefore, I think they will probably gain more traction and more support as they go, because there will be more people, with different interests actually, in having them on there. So it's going to be a great piece of news actually. If of course, Google comes in the boats and now uses the same technology for running Steam and ChromeOS, because that means now we'll have a common set of libraries and frameworks that will be used by Valve, Google, and Amazon, which is three of the most powerful companies out there.
Absolutely. With all these powerful companies throwing their weight behind all this, it's exciting to see what the next few years hold for us as Linux gamers.
So what do you think is going to happen with like Stadia and that kind of thing? So because let's say ChromeOS now tomorrow has a Steam available for like release and download for all people who have access to that kind of hardware. Do you think they will have a kind of like a service that will both combine Steam and Stadia at the same time, so that they will kind of play on both sides, or it will kind of be separated?
I feel like those two services are going to be separated. I think there's potential, just like we saw with Amazon Luna. Perhaps Stadia might even adopt Proton, because I think that might be, a lot of my like Twitter followers are huge Stadia fanatics, and they absolutely love it. And the only complaint I ever see about the service is that it's lack of games. And if you're able to bring that to the cloud, where Stadia, it's already running on Linux. They're using AMD graphics card. Shouldn't be too hard to implement Proton and give games stamp of approvals with like versions of Proton they know work. So I think there's some place for Proton to exist in Stadia, but I think ultimately the gaming services between Stadia and Steam will be separate.
So do you still think that Valve is also working on their own streaming solution, or at this stage it looks like maybe undecided, I would say?
Yeah, I actually went back and reread some news articles about that, and I definitely think it's top of mind for them. Valve, they're so forward thinking that they're trying to stay relevant, and I think through being able to have their own game streaming service, and then also because if you look at the success of like Xbox Game Pass, I have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and I love it. It's just incredible being able to have all of these games. I was so excited for Halo Infinite launch. I pre-ordered it. I was ready to go. But then I got a good deal on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and I was like, geez, like I just cancel my Halo Infinite and then put that money savings towards the Game Pass, and I'm glad I did. It was worth every penny. So like things like that. I think Valve knows that like long term, seems like cloud game streaming. That's where the industry is moving towards. So I think they're investing heavily in that. And then rumors about like Steam Deck is like maybe part 2 in their hardware journey, with part 1 being the Steam machines. Rest in peace. and now like rumors of like a part 3 being like a standalone headset or like a game console for your TV that is like designed for VR. I think they're going in a great direction, and I'm really excited to see what they officially announce in the coming years.
So we're actually discussing this kind of thing a couple of days ago on the Magic channel for Boiling Steam, and one of the things that people were kind of disappointed with was that the index support for Linux has been pretty disappointing over the last year or two, compared to what they had announced, like have full Linux support for VR and so on. And it looks like they kind of shifted the priorities to probably the Steam Deck and Proton in the meantime, and now like the VR effort has been kind of let down. So how do you see this kind of thing, and do you see Valve being consistent in their support in the future across all the different initiatives?
Yeah, I think the future is bright for that. There's definitely a focus more on making sure Proton actually works, is stable and polished. And of course, with Steam Deck being like their official product, it's coming out now. They've been ramping up production, expect to sell millions of units over the next year. I think that is definitely target number 1. And if they could just continue to polish up that experience, I think by extension, that's going to be helping out their virtual reality side of the house. And I think it will definitely be a place for them to revisit eventually. And I'm really excited for if and when, they might have more of an investment back into VR. I just recently finished Half-Life Alyx, and oh my gosh, it was just I'd say it's the best VR game ever. It was so great. The end of it was so emotional. I literally cried, and I talked to my wife about it, and she's like, "Yeah, like it makes total sense. Like you didn't just play a game. Like you lived through it. You lived through that ending." And I was like, "Yeah," and it's just like it had an impact on me for an entire week. So I'm just excited to see like what other like stories and adventures they can help bring to virtual reality headsets.
Yeah, I mean, Alex has been kind of a one-time VR experience, as in like there's not really anything like that out there. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Valve has been demonstrating this is what you can do with VR if you do it really well. But the thing is that this is basically no other companies out there was able to do that kind of efforts to bring this kind of game for a very very tiny market, which is the VR market right now. It may be that you were peering into the future, but the VR kind of games that you're going to get in the next 3 years are going to be nowhere like what you get with Alex right now. So the only I think drawback for that market to grow is like when are we going to get this kind of consistent I would say game changing experiences in VR, so that we can justify okay I'm going to spend like $1,000 or more on having a headset plus a very powerful GPU. But also I think it's also a matter of maybe the costs need to go down. We need to get rid of the wires, all these kind of things, and that would probably make a lot more sense at some point in terms of the form itself and how you can enjoy the medium. But it's probably going to take a couple more years before you get there.
Absolutely, yeah. The cost has always been the biggest thing, which is why I've actually gone with an Oculus Quest. I have the original. It costs $400, but now it's $100 cheaper. It's literally better in every way, except for that little asterisk of you need a Facebook account, which I don't even have Facebook. I'm like I don't wanna be like part of the Facebook takeover. But yeah, I mean, taking my tinfoil hat off, like, yeah, the fact that they're able to make a headset for like $300, I mean, I'm sure that like Facebook's losing tons of money on that, like Oculus that they own, and we need more devices like that. And I think if Valve wants to have any chance at all in this market, they have to have cutthroat pricing on that. And in addition, hopefully we get some cool new launch titles. If they come out with a new VR headset, hopefully standalone. I think they would need like another Half-Life game to really, kick it off and make it more mainstream. Like price, and then having just more next-gen games, more immersive games like Half-Life Alyx, I think is really the selling point.
Coming back on what you said about the cloud game streaming solution from Valve. What is your thinking as to why they're waiting that long to release some kind of service in that area? Because they already have the technology to run virtually maybe like 60 to 70% of Windows game this way using Linux servers and Proton. And that would already beat basically any kind of service that anybody else has out there in terms of library. So why do you think they're waiting so long to have some kind of service around that?
Yeah, so the last time I checked, ProtonDB, it reported that 83% of all of the games reported on there work on Linux, and that probably doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
A lot of people they're running Proton tricks to install things.
Correct.
Or Proton GE, which it's automatically running Proton tricks and a whole bunch of other things, and like per game configurations. I think there's still so many like tweaks and like polish and just a lot of dependencies that still need to go into making sure that it's a good experience. Like even today, they're still kind of working out the whole video support, which I'm hoping we see like a non-glorious egg roll release, that like an official one that actually has that fully supported soon. I know they've been working really hard on it, and basically all the pieces are there. It seems like they need to do a rebase on Wine, because there's just so many changes in the media foundation department and other like audio codecs and video codecs support. But yeah, I think the Steam Deck. I feel like the Steam Deck is like the ultimate way. It's getting all these eyeballs from the consumers, from publishers. All these game developers are now are so excited to be getting their hands on the Steam Deck, to be optimizing their games for that, making sure that it's working in Proton, and that's the piece right there. The making sure that it works in Proton part. I think this is Steam Deck step one of getting developers on board with the Linux ecosystem and running through Proton. And then, next step is, okay, it's been QA'd, it's been tested, they know it's working, it's got the Steam Deck seal of approval. And once they get that Steam Deck verified, then, the more games they get that, then I think that would be ultimately what they could publish through the game streaming service.
Yeah, it would make sense, because then you would have that intermediate step to justify that the game is working as expected. Yeah. What do you think about the fact that for the Steam Deck, Valve was doing some kind of tweets marketing campaign where they were asking people to, if your game is running on the Steam Deck and you want to advertise it, shoot us a video and we'll display it for free for you, in kind of our campaign, right? And most of those games that were currently being displayed and showcased were indie games. I think there was one exception. Is maybe Capcom showed their Devil May Cry 5 running on it as well. But I think what stood out for me is there was very, very few AAA games that were actually showcased. And that may be that I would say the AAA studios are kind of in a wait and see mode, should we actually do anything with the Steam Deck or not? What's your thinking about that?
Yeah, so historically, we all kind of know that indie games work kind of better on Linux, and so I'm sure that's a big reason why they're getting a part of the spotlight. I think it's kind of reassuring for me, at least, to know that Valve has publicly said that the game developers that are getting Steam Decks are the ones that people who have pre-ordered it, they either have wishlisted or they've played a lot of, and so they've prioritized it based off of the most popular games, the most in-demand games, and those are the developers that are getting the Steam Decks and they're optimizing their games. And so, hey, I mean, if that's what a lot of people are playing and wanting to have is a lot of indie games, then I think that's absolutely great. It'll be a win-win for Steam Deck to fully support those. But also, yeah, it is really important for the main publishers to also have a big say in this. And there have been rumors now that Ubisoft is possibly coming back to Steam with their full game library. I'm pretty sure that Steam Deck would probably be a huge reason for that. And during their kind of initial reveal, we saw a few more big name games, even Halo, the Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, he had a Steam Deck and he's yeah, I'm just playing Halo and Age of Empires on this thing, and it actually works great. And it's just whoa, that's a huge statement right there. Head of Xbox game is playing this thing. He's kind of giving it his unofficial seal of approval. So, yeah, I think we will see a lot more AAA games featured on it. Maybe not right now, but hopefully we'll get some more official marketing material as we get closer to that Steam Deck release we're all waiting for.
How do you think the other, I would say, big console manufacturer are going to react to that, like Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo? I mean, Nintendo, I guess, is kind of separate league on its own because it's mostly, that has their first-party games that are the reason why you basically buy Nintendo hardware in the first place. So I guess it doesn't really impact them too much. But how about Sony and Microsoft? What do you think is going to be their reaction to the Steam Deck?
Yeah, I think Microsoft, their initial tactic is going to be really publicizing like, hey, if you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you can stream games on your Steam Deck. You can stream any Xbox game, the major ones, any new day one releases. You can stream it, and I think that right there would be huge. Next step, I think everyone's cautiously, all these other manufacturers, game console developers will be keeping an eye on the Steam Deck, seeing how successful this really is going to be. Waiting a few years to get some long-term like feedback results, market research on it. And I could totally see Microsoft coming out with their own Xbox handheld. PlayStation, historically they've had the PlayStation Portable that kind of died off. This might be the kind of kick that they need to bring such a product back to the market, especially if they could somehow provide all PlayStation games ever like available to play on like a portable device. I think that'd be like a huge selling point right there.
What do you think? Like, they didn't get that kick from when they saw the Switch selling like 100 million units.
Yeah, historically in the portable game department, if you look at the sales number between like the PlayStation Portable and either like the Nintendo DS, now the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's just been kicking their ass. I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess even for me, I've preferred the like Nintendo Switch experience over like a traditional PSP. And I think Nintendo being like the family-friendly game console and always having such unique features. Every little console that they come out with, it's never necessarily the most powerful in the graphics department. It's all about the innovation that they do with it. And so I think that's the key for anything to be really successful. I mean, the PSP for what it was a great device, but it didn't really innovate on anything. I think the Steam Deck is innovative. It's this game console. You hand someone and say, hey, like all 55,000 games on Steam you can play. Go have fun. Like that's huge, just to be able to have your own game library. And for me, I travel a lot for work, so being able to have a portable game console that I could also like plug into a TV in my hotel and like literally just start working on it and making presentations. Like I love how it's like dual purpose. I like having Swiss Army knife tools that can do a lot of things.
So you mentioned like you expect them to sell like millions of them. Do you think the uptake is going to be pretty fast or not, based on the fact that the whole industry is still facing shortages this year?
Yeah, I'm hoping that they can kind of meet up with supply and demand. It's anyone's guess at this point, and we're all already kind of bummed out that the initial release has been pushed back by a few months. I mean, but I think it'll all kind of work out in the long term. Things will normalize. But yeah, in the meantime, we're just gonna have to kind of accept this kind of reality and just patiently wait in the meantime.
And so one of the next logical steps, as you mentioned earlier, would be potentially for Valve to release a console for the TV rights space. So you would have some kind of maybe Steam Deck-like console that would be used to run games on your larger TV screen. Do you think that's gonna come soon? As they were going to be waiting for Steam Deck to be really an established market before they do that, or that's still far away from now?
Yeah, I think we'll be waiting for a little bit, and I think it'll mainly be because of the hardware supply, the chip shortage. I think it's gonna take a while for them to catch up with Steam Deck orders. I think that will take at least a year, and then after that point, once that's kind of stabilized and they can start looking at, can we start making another game console that would also kind of be, something that they can produce and get into customers' hands in like a reasonable amount of time. I think there's a lot of logistics to consider. But yeah, I mean, definitely having the Steam Deck out on the market for like at least a year, I think that's huge for them in terms of like testing and compatibility and QA. So, it's just like wine. It gets better with age. So, whenever we see these new hardware editions come out, I'm sure they're going to be great experiences.
Regarding the anti-cheats situation, so more ESC and BattleEye are now kind of supporting the Steam Deck officially, but it's still not there in terms of actual game support. I mean, BattleEye has been, I think, getting 5 games now supporting the anti-cheat technology itself. For ESC, we still have yet to see a lot of games actually enabling it for Linux in general, and of course the Steam Deck in the future. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think like gamers are going to demand such games to be working on the Steam Deck, and then developers are reluctantly going to do it, or do you think at some point they will realize like we have to support Steam Deck anyway?
Yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate situation. I mean, on the BattleEye side of things, it's a little bit easier to enable the support. You just send an email. With Easy Anti-Cheat, that's where you actually have to upgrade your Easy Anti-Cheat implementation. So that's a whole big to-do, and the whole QA process for that. I mean, you're doing QA for this new version of Easy Anti-Cheat, and more importantly, you're now possibly having like your QA team testing out like Proton and everything. So I mean, there's a lot of complications, and some game developers might even be a little turned off by a Proton because it's not using anything like the kernel level, and so they might think that, oh, hey, that's not really like as secure. So I think it's going to be some gray area for some time to come. Obviously, hopefully, with the Steam Deck, that'll help give these game developers kind of the final push to really support it. And there's a great website. It's called like Are We Anti-Cheat? And I love just once a week I always have to check out the website. And there's so many titles that on there that are they're confirmed to be coming. They haven't been released yet, with having their official anti-cheat support. So I really do hope that more game developers get on board with this. And then selfishly, I know I brought up Halo a few times. It's one of my all-time favorite games. Halo: The Master Chief Collection is Easy Anti-Cheat, and I actually think that legitimately is one of the number one most demanded games to have Easy Anti-Cheat on Steam Deck. So I'm interested to see what they do, especially with it kind of being Microsoft owned. It's like if they support that, then are they sanctioning the fact that Wine and Proton exist and that they're okay with it? It's this interesting area that I'll be keeping a close eye on.
Do you think though, even though let's say assuming that the anti-cheat situation doesn't change in a year or so, like still gonna be maybe what it is right now, which is like most games don't really support the Steam Deck. Is that going to be a big blocker for the Steam Deck to be adopted on the market?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, these competitive, shooters and games where they want to make sure there's no cheaters and stuff. I think players definitely want to play some of these games, especially when you like talk about games like Fortnite and PUBG and all. But at the end of the day, you have a huge library of games, and this joke kind of, you see this joke all the time about people have hundreds, if not thousands, of games in their Steam library that they've never played before. And I feel like the Steam Deck gives them this chance, this opportunity to branch out and go try these games. For me, I have a backlog I've written down of games I want to go play. So like Lego City Undercover. I've heard a lot of great things about that game. I'm a big Lego fan. Sounds like a really cool open world game. I think it'd be perfect for the Steam Deck. Something I can play on the go, and then when I'm home, I can dock it into my into the dock, and then have like an Xbox controller hooked up and just play from the TV. So I think that it won't be a blocker. The fact that we won't have some of these easy anti-cheat games. It will be a bummer for sure, but I still think that there's such huge potential for what you can do with a Steam Deck.
All right. Maybe last question. What do you think is going to happen in terms of distribution the next year? Like in the world of making the distribution more user-friendly and maybe more approachable for new Linux users?
Yeah, I really hope that's something that is addressed because as we've seen, very popular, it's been Linus Tech Tips has been trying out Linux and it's been an awful experience. It ended up basically uninstalling the operating system or at least like the desktop environment. And yeah, these issues, they happen to us a lot. And I was worried too. I've handed a few friends and relatives Linux on a flash drive, and my own. I used to call it Mac Linux Gaming Stick. Recently rebranded to call it WineSap OS. That's a whole nother story. And so I was a little hesitant about that. It's running Manjaro, soon to be based off of SteamOS 3 once that's released. And that's always my number one concern is like, is this approachable? Do people understand? And I like to walk people through using Linux on a flash drive and see them booted up. And I like to take a hands-off approach and just kind of observe, kind of like almost like a psychology experiment to see like how intuitive is this. And for the most part, I've actually been very surprised because like Cinnamon and KDE Plasma, they're so familiar. People who are used to kind of the Windows ecosystem, and so especially with Steam Deck coming out and they got KDE Plasma on there now, I really hope that we get more polish and standardization. It's both a blessing and a curse that Linux has options. I think for it to be successful, we need to not have options. We need to have opinions. And so for me as like a developer myself, from now on, I'm only going to be targeting the Qt framework, what KDE Plasma is built on, as far as like GUI applications, because that's what Valve's doing. And so I'm hoping that like Valve and SteamOS, like SteamOS becomes the standard for Linux. And if applications can kind of target that system, I think that's the best chance Linux users have of having success on the desktop.
Well, I think one of the interesting choices for SteamOS that it's using a read-only kind of system, immutable system that prevents basically the end user from destroying everything by mistake. And it also has a kind of a safe update mechanism. Of course, I think that's ideal for a console-like system. It also could be useful for even a regular desktop system as well. That you can rely on something that doesn't break, that can always reboot in case you crash something or you make a wrong, I would say, something wrong with the way you use certain programs, but you can still reboot to the fresh system without having any impact on the core itself of the system. So I'm wondering if that kind of, I would say, concept on how to design, I would say, a Linux system is going to take off as well for other distributions apart from SteamOS. Because that could be also an interesting approach to make the systems more resilient for the end users.
Absolutely. I love the idea behind that of the read-only file system. I mean, that's what Chromebooks are doing with ChromeOS. And back when I worked at Red Hat for my work laptop, I actually installed Fedora Silverblue, which same concept. It's got that read-only file system, and it's kind of fun. The fact that it's kind of like Git. Everything's revision. You can like rebase onto the latest version, or you can switch to a different branch and it just downloads the new image and then applies it to a different partition, and then it just tells Grub or your boot manager to boot into that other partition. So it's fun. I like the concept of it. But after daily driving Fedora Silverblue for at least a year before I went back to just vanilla Fedora, it was it was a struggle. I mean, at least in terms of like daily use. Yeah, I can like install some Flatpaks, but not everything was a Flatpak, and it's still like a new kind of maturing technology, and there's a lot of limitations with going the read-only route. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see where the concept of that goes. I do like the concept of it, and I hope that it continues to be improved upon to make it the best user experience possible.
Let's see where that goes. Yeah, I think also, as you mentioned, the whole system that can be traced using their kits, changes, versioning of everything. It's apparently getting more and more popular. There's NixOS. There's also Vuix that's also doing that recently. Yeah, actually, I wasn't aware that Silverblue was also doing that. So actually, there's another one as well that's probably fairly popular. So it looks like there's more and more of those distros who are, I would say, going to the next generation kind of design on how distros will be working in the future. And maybe we'll need to have a Ubuntu-like version of this is how you do it correctly, kind of thing, maybe happening to show everybody this is the best way to do it. So this is probably still very much in development, and they probably will settle down on something that's going to be a better ground in a couple of years from now. So we'll see where that goes. I wanted to thank you again for your time today. It was great talking to you again, and even though I would say that Steam is not yet on ChromeOS, I think we still think it's going to be pretty soon, maybe just a few months away, hopefully. In any case, I think 2022 is going to be the greatest year ever for Linux gaming, with the Steam Deck and probably ChromeOS as well, welcoming Steam on their platform. So I'm really looking forward to probably talking to you again in the future once that becomes a reality, and then we can see exactly how well that works.
Yeah, that sounds great, and thank you so much for having me. I completely agree with you. I think 2022 is kind of be like this highlight year. It's going to be a year to remember for ages on. It's going to be very defining for us in the Linux gaming community. So yeah, hopefully next time I talk to you, be pretty cool if Steam is officially working on Chromebooks and we have Steam Decks in our hands. And you can bet that as soon as I get my Steam Deck, one of the first things I'm going to do is dual boot in ChromeOS, and I'm going to write a whole article about it.
All right. Okay, I guess we'll finish there, and we'll come back at the prediction next year.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Take care.
Again, thank you for listening. If you went through all this conversation, hope you found it interesting. And please don't forget to register to all different channels. We're on YouTube, we're on PeerTube as well. Of course, we have RSS feeds. We have a metrics channel when you're all welcome to join us to chat with us anytime. And we also have a Patreon page and a LibraPay page. You will find under this video and this podcast information if you'd like to contribute and help support what we do at BattleEye Team. Thank you, and have a great day, great weekend.